Well, good morning, everyone. It is Monday, November 11th, Veterans Day. So I'm rocking the Navy hat and the Blue Angel sweatshirt. My name is Wade Cruz. I'm the pastor for senior adults at Quail Springs Baptist Church, and I am a veteran, just barely. I'll explain a little bit of that later. But you can see in the background, um, I am at a national cemetery virtually. This is a picture I took at a service I did last year, and so it was pretty amazing. Um, we owe a lot to our veterans, not veterans like me, which you'll hear about in a moment. But God has a plan and a purpose for all of us. Uh, we'll close with something I hope is a little bit touching. Not everybody's a veteran, and that's okay. But everybody does owe their freedom to the veterans and the ability to vote like we just did, live in this country, choose who will represent you in governance, all sorts of things. So don't take your rights or your freedoms for granted. These guys back here doing the 21 gun salute, and they were the honor guard and they were the pallbearers at this particular funeral. It was amazing. So, with that, I want to tell you a story. Um, and God has a weird way of making things happen. But uh, in high school, I really, really, really wanted to go to the Naval Academy. Uh, one of my best friends and I were going together. Truth is, I wasn't academy material. I mean, I can look back and say that now. Came from a broken home. Weren't very well off. Didn't have any kind of political connections. Wasn't pushed to make straight A's, that kind of stuff. But my buddy got to go. He had to go to prep school, and then he ended up being a pilot. But unfortunately, within 10 years of high school, he had died tragically in a plane crash, a collision off of San Diego. So um, I go on to enlist in the Navy. I went to boot camp in San Diego and went to nuclear power school. I was recruited pretty heavily. I'm a little bit smarter than I let on, but anyway, I graduated from Naval Nuclear Power School. That's something that I cherish as an accomplishment. Not many people do that. Uh, I've been on ships and submarines. I mean, on them, not out to sea. I've never went out to sea. Never even got a ribbon. Never got a medal. Nothing. Um, old football knee injury flared up that I told them about before I went in, and because of a little loophole I didn't even know about called injury prior to entry, um, I I got an honorable discharge and was in long enough to get my benefits, and I'm just evidence that God takes care of the stupid. I mean, that's the main thing there. But I say I'm just barely a veteran. I did serve on a ship in Connecticut, and I got just enough taste of the military to I man, if I could do it all over again, I'd have gone to college first, and I would have tried to be an officer. I think uh, I would have done okay at that. Anyway, here's the cool story that you never know what's going to happen. Some of you have heard this story before, but I'll make it brief. But here's what, besides all the other things that have panned out in life for me, I go to boot camp, and I got, my testimony, most of you, I got saved on a bus ministry in the 70s. I got saved at a church that was going around picking up kids on the old buses. That's a whole nother story. But that was cool. That was, saving grace for me. And my hat's cutting off in here. Oh, these virtual pictures mess it up. But anyway, I got too old to ride the bus, and so I was out of church for a few years. And then about the middle of my junior year and my senior year, I made it back to, even if I had to walk, I went to First Baptist Moore off and on. And then I go in the Navy. Well, um, gosh, I was 17 when I graduated high school, so I had to wait till I turned 18 to enter. And my mom was more than happy to sign when I was 17. So January of 1982, I went in. So that's 42 years ago. And I go to boot camp, San Diego. and lots of funny stories from that. But the best one, people have asked, when about your calling. How did you get into ministry? How did you get into being, a pastor and doing that kind of stuff? And I never really had like a call, like a response to an invitation or an altar call. But here's what happened, and here's when I knew that I was meant for more, if that makes sense. Um, I'm in boot camp. Sundays are your only day off. You're drilling and training and doing everything, going to classes, all that stuff, Monday through Saturday. Well, Sunday you get your day off, you get to sleep in late, but you still have to like clean the barracks and do different things. Well, I got up. Let me back up. First week, first couple of days, orientation, you get your clothes, all that stuff, and people they've got you in a room, and people are coming by telling you what all to expect. And then the chaplains come in, and they said on Sunday mornings at 0900 or whatever, we have chapel service. Here's the Catholic service. Here's the Protestant service. Here's the Jewish service, whatever. So, being good little Southern Baptist, I jump up and put on my cleanest uniform I had and went down to the chapel. And of course, all the chaplains are officers because they've been to seminary and they have at least a master's in something theological. And the Protestant chaplain at the time that I recall was a lady, a female, and pretty sure she was a lieutenant commander, two big stripes and one little stripe. And so we get there, and at least by the second Sunday, there were several of us that, by talking to each other, knew that we sang in high school a little bit. So I don't know why, but they shoved me towards the chaplain and said, "Go ask her." So I went over and I said, "Ma'am, would it be okay if we put together a choir and sang, in worship and led the other guys and stuff?" And she was just excited. She's, "Oh yeah, that'd be awesome. You guys can sing." And then so we sang, old imperial songs and just the whatever was the rage of the day in 1981, 82. So that rolls on week after week after week. We're showing up. She even got us out of stuff so that we could come rehearse, and kind of get tight as a little choir. So we did that, and just consistent. And because boot camp was only, I don't know, 8 or 10 weeks long, guys would roll out and new guys would roll in, and so the choir was kind of different every time. But that went on, throughout the rest of boot camp. Well, then one day, our company commander, which is the equivalent of a drill instructor, and ours was a teddy bear. He was kind of a Dan Aykroyd looking guy, and he was about 6 months from retirement, and he never yelled at us at all. Boot camp was so easy for me, it wasn't even funny. But anyway, except for not getting much sleep. He calls me into the office and he goes, "Cruz, get in here." Okay, so I go in and he goes, "What did you do?" I was like, "Which time, sir?" And he laughed, and he said, "I don't know what you did," but he said, he used some colorful language, but he said, "Your body part, your tail needs to be in the officer's mess Thursday morning at 0700 in your dress blues, like what the Cracker Jack box looks like." And I said, "The officer's mess?" He said, "The officer's mess." And by that time, by the end of boot camp, they were using us for, labor and to open doors and do different things. And so I just looked at him. I said, "Am I serving breakfast?" He said, "You are breakfast." And I said, "What?" He said, "You're going to represent boot camp. You're going to be the only recruit at the Admiral's prayer breakfast Thursday morning. You've been requested specifically by the chaplains." I'm like, "Me?" So anyway, I get there and it's San Diego Chamber of Commerce, all these business people, admirals, several of them, captains, commanders, so much brass, it wasn't even funny. And I was like their guest of honor. I got to sit, at a big table, not the main table, but a major table, and then or a captain table or an admiral table. Anyway, that was dumb. But the keynote speaker was the president of the San Diego Padres baseball team, and everybody there, prayed together. And these were big shots, and I'm just a little BB. But I was there, and everybody was coming up, asking kind of the same question. So, where are you from, son? How do you like boot camp? And but it was neat. But long story short, that's when I knew, or looking back, that's when it happened. That's when I realized that God had sanctified me, for lack of a better word, which just means set apart, pulled me out of the herd, and you know, like the movie The Chosen or the series The Chosen, whatever you want to call it, but that I was meant for more, that God had stuff for me to do, and but at the same time, you know, I'm unconventional. We'll go with that. We'll use that word. I'm, I'm the fool God uses to confound the wise. I'm like Gideon when he told the angel of the Lord, "You want me? I come from the wrong side of the tracks. I have no influence. Nobody's gonna, you know." And that's the point. And that's what uh, that the angel of the Lord. It's a whole nother lesson, but told Gideon, he said, "When we go to battle, we'll be as one." It's not because of anything I can do. It's because God is with me. And God and I will always be an unbeatable combination because God can't be defeated. So it's God picks people like me, like I said, the fool that he uses to confound the wise. God picks people like me and like you because it's real easy to demonstrate that it's God doing it because there's no way I could do it. There's there's no way that there's any ability in me to do the things that have been done uh, in and around me. So it's got to be God. There's no other answer. And that's how God puts his majesty on display. That's how he demonstrates his power and his authority is by taking the least expected person. And what Moses is herding sheep or goats out and hundreds of miles away, thousands of miles. And Moses was like, "You don't want me. Like, don't tell God who he wants. Um, he wants you." He uses veterans. He this man uh, in the coffin with the flag on it uh, served this country, loved this country. So I want to share something with you, and then we'll we'll call it a morning. But I hope this blesses you. I hope you tell a veteran thank you today, November 11th. So it was originally called Armistice Day, and pretty neat thing. It was 1911, so November is the 11th month. So 11, 11, 11 at 11 a.m. They signed the treaty. All right, this is pretty neat. Um, this is Jesus on the cross, and he's dying for you and for me, and he's um, basically letting out his last breath. And the things that happen. I'm going to read this out of Mark chapter 15, starting with verse 37. And Jesus uttered a loud cry and breathed his last. And the veil of the temple was torn in two from top to bottom. That was like a rug. That was like as thick as a rug, and it had gold and silver weaved into it. You couldn't just rip it with your hands. It wasn't like a bed sheet or a curtain. Hear this. If you hear nothing else today, hear this. When the centurion, that's a soldier, a centurion is someone in charge of 100 people, 100 other soldiers. When the centurion who was standing right in front of him saw the way he breathed his last, he said, "Truly, this man was the Son of God." On this Veterans Day, never ever forget it was a soldier who first declared that Jesus was the Son of God. I hope that blesses you, and I hope you have the opportunity to thank a veteran every time you see him.